Hi, in this video I want to talk about philosophy, academic philosophy versus practical or life-inspiring philosophy, whatever you want to call that. Basically, there is a promotional philosophy and it's always dated back to ancient Greece, ancient this, Hinduism, yoga, whatever. But the state of modern philosophy is much different. And I've done both. So I have a degree in academic philosophy, and I've left that basically because the deeper you go into that, the more it becomes about guarding your reference system and being very focused on one issue, and never being able to say something because there's always a contradiction. And what is the universe without being a contradiction? And the life of academics is also it's a career system basically, where to get your way to the top of the hierarchy, you have to obey this, do that. You have to master the students. There's not much inspiration, although there are moments of interesting aspects and introduction of something new, but it's very narrow-minded. And within that system, you basically will find a career and work, hopefully. Other than that, it is mostly useful for learning how to articulate yourself. For example, you learn to write better, you learn to read text better, you learn well, if you write in English, for example, or in any language, you just get some general improvements. And mostly university education is about that. Now the thing is, modern Western philosophy has been dead for a long time, ever since it sort of left out humanity and society and became very focused, very segregated between various branches of philosophy basically. So that's why you have people arguing for the murder of infants, or why it is okay for an impaired parents or a lesbian couple to genetically modify their offspring to also be like deaf or something, because that would be, if that's not allowed, then it's sort of a dismissal of disabled people or whatever. Relativization is our kind of enemy in philosophy. There's not much you can say. And why are, for example, the big religions still here? Because they have no competition. If we look at the intellectual atheistic kind of branch, people are just basically minding their own business and thinking more about their presence and attitude and being sort of wise and being quick and being dismissive and being good at punching ideas and so on. But there's not much inspiration there for yourself, for family life, for any kind of matter of life. And that's why Catholicism, Islam is still around, because they have no competition, and the little sort of spirituality they have left, it's all that it takes for people to be dragged in it or raised by it, traditional, like people say you were born this or that. How can you be born being a Catholic or Muslim or a Jew or any other religion for that matter? So we have a situation where yoga and similar kind of philosophy / practical physical ideas are popular, and of course they come in various packages. Some are more authentic, some are more modern, like sitting on a bench yoga or whatever. But the thing is, it's because it offers something practical, some kind of insight, some kind of self-reflection. I'm not going to go into that now, and it also allows for something physical, an experience. and that's a benefit. Compare that to academic rooms now that I've experienced. They don't offer anything. People are unhealthy, people are kind of stressed out and whatnot, so they're getting no benefit of, you know, spending years like debating in papers over some detail of an idea, because yeah, there's always a contradiction, you can always argue this and that, but we are a holistic being, so we need the kind of engagement for our mind, our heart and our guts. The first time I don't do yoga. I'm not a, you know, I don't practice it, but I've done it, and I don't have anything against it. I would do it perhaps in the future again. But I remember when I was in India, by some random occasion, I have watched like a yoga documentary some years before that, and I went to this studio and just asked around, and you know, do you have a course? And they had a course that started the same day, so I jumped in on it, and I think I missed 2 days already, so I got 3 days for the price of 5 days, you know. What a bargain. But anyway, that teacher was one of the popular, a bit not famous, but you know, a good one. And at the end of the course, when everybody was really realizing, wow, this is something good, you know, my body feels great, I feel really relaxed and calm and boosted, he asked like, so you guys, he did it in an Indian accent, I'm not gonna, you know, make fun of that, but he said, so you guys are gonna do this every day for the rest of your life? And silence, and people laughed. And then he said, you probably won't do it because you're lazy, and you know, people laughed. And that's the kind of thing we should be aspiring for, something that engages ourselves in the big and the small, on the micro and the micro level. And it doesn't have to be, you know, hatha yoga or something like that, but there are various traditions. And for example, if you read ancient Greece philosophy, the work of Plato, there are lots of practical sort of guidelines in there, basically. You don't have to agree with all of them, but there are, because those scriptures, texts, dare to say something. And why philosophy is dead, why, you know, scientists and scientism declares philosophy dead, it's because they compare their academic science with academic philosophy. And of course, that's a no-brainer, that's no match. But if you look at the sort of more holistic philosophy, the one that's still around, it's still around, it's good, and it helps people. And that's one of the reasons I think philosophy is dead in our Western tradition, because it's been dead for a while, that it's really like gone, and the grave is not there, you know, there's no marking on the grave anymore. And it happened in the 19th century, it began there, and you know, it moved away from being something sort of metaphysical, alchemical and all that, to become very narrow. And that's the result we have now. We have this very, very narrow career academic philosophy. And as a former student of philosophy, the only benefits you can get is, as I said, some practical in language, and to learn to be sort of to write papers, to write stuff which can be of a benefit when you dig into maybe you know, if you get problems with, I don't know, insurance or whatever, you get a better language, a better way of expressing yourself in the written word and so on. But I don't know anyone who really keeps their books they used as a student, and most books are available online, so it's also just an industry of selling and reselling books. And what the philosophy teachers basically do is that they gather, you know, sources, authors, books, and dwell on it. And in the beginning of an academic study, you get to the interesting stuff, basically, but the more you advance, the more narrow it becomes, the more sort of career-based it gets. And I'm not saying, you know, everything should be abolished, but I think it's a way, it's universities in many cases like a kindergarten for smart people, just to keep them there and, you know, let them do something with tax money. The public should be aware of philosophy and practical philosophy, and I think just as programming is being introduced into schools, so should some kind of a yoga, some kind of a relaxing sessions, and practice of mindful states and self-insight. In my school days, there was a teacher who did like experiments with us. For example, like simple stuff like close your eyes, keep your arms out, imagine that you have 20 kilos in your right arm, and you did that and it felt really heavy. He did relaxation exercises with us, and various kinds of mind over matter exercises. So that was when I look back, I realize how little that was, but how much how much it meant in a landscape of not at all. And when I was an extra teacher 10 years ago, I did some of that, and the kids were interested. Of course, there's always jiggles and all that. The same thing I mentioned in an earlier video recently. I used to do like humming or chanting sessions in a party, for example. After a while, you sit down, you start to tone, people catch up, and suddenly an hour passes and everybody feels like, wow, this was something special. And also in the beginning there are 2 or 3 people who jiggle and feel uncomfortable, but then they feel relaxed, and after that people are kind of zoned out and wow. So let's cut the small talk, let's get deeper into this. So that's philosophy. And because the Western civilization for the moment has no unity in philosophy, everything is based on various kinds of individual philosophers, and kind of a rock and roll attitude, being smart, being dismissing, being cool. It's no wonder that Eastern practice is gaining popularity, and it will be transformed into some kind of a Western model, as Zen Buddhism has, as Buddhism has in itself, as yoga, as everything will, and I did a video also some time back that there is really no Eastern and Western thought or differences. It was divided by the Abrahamic religions. So even if you look at the ancient European traditions, there were philosophies and practices of breathing, of mental states and all that. So I think it's kind of sad, and I think philosophy as an academic, as a subsidized government form, is really dead, long gone and dead. It would be more benefit if the government just got rid of all that, as I said, like relativistic sort of theories and all that nonsense, and just said to the people like, hey, we must spend this money. Let's just assume we have to spend the money. Like, here's a discount for a monthly practice of Tai Chi or relaxation, water tanks, whatever. Like, here. That would be so much more efficient from a point of national health. So that's that. Some ideas on that, because as a philosopher, I mean somebody who has an academic degree, and I work partly with philosophy now in my work, where I do intermedia editing and all that, based on material which has to do with philosophy, spirituality and all that. People have asked me many times, and not really asked me, but more sort of like, so what's philosophy good for? What can you become of that? It's like everything, you know, you can study and learn about anything, but you have to do something of it. You have to make a living some way or another and struggle your way. But first and foremost, you have to benefit yourself. So if you're a doctor, for example, you should benefit from it. If you're an engineer, you should benefit from that in one way or another. That's the most important starting point. But yeah, so now it's summer and I like to read, you know, all the works and all that, and I'm just intrigued by how much inspiration can come, how much like bursts, like a volcano can come out of like a phrase from the Dhammapada, or reading The Republic by Plato. Not all of it, but some passages. There's so much quality in all of that, and I think it should be returned, promoted, repacked with something practical, physical, that engages people. And if academic philosophy can't do anything better than just relativization and all that safe spacing that goes on in various countries, and tiptoeing and, you know, locking yourself into institutions and just having it as a career, well, just grant the money for people to get the discount on a yoga course or whatever. Some general ideas there. I'm in the botanical gardens, smelling the flowers. It's sort of almost raining, but not raining. Yeah, all the best. Take care. Ciao.